Instagram. I see everyone coming here on Instagram. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're here to talk about the tools and resources that are available to performance athletes with Dr. K. Here today, we are getting set up here on Instagram. Hello, everyone. Hello, Maddie Dancer, Bridget Ramirez. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, everybody here in Facebook world. We are so happy to have you. Another Friday, and look how seamless that to get
We
up and
got
running
right
on that
on.
technology was, Bree.
It's
We are
amazing.
learning.
We're
It's
getting
just
that.
it
We're
took a
getting that.
whole year
That's all it took was a whole year.
for us to figure that out.
Wonderful.
All right, we're gonna let everybody just catch up here for a second and we'll get started here in about 1 minute, right?
Yep. Hello, everyone. Lex M. Stevens, I see you out there. Thank you for joining us on Instagram.
Hi, Tammy. I see you out there.
And everybody in Facebook land, welcome. It is Friday. We are here for Beyond the Steps. We're chatting with Dr. Stephen Karageanes today about what are some of the most important tools and resources and services that we have for performance athletes at our fingertips that you might not know about. And definitely a great conversation to have as we head into the new season, or we are in the new season, as we head deeper into the new season, I should say. Welcome everybody in Facebook, Instagram, and here on Zoom.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, let's everybody get started. We don't want to delay anyone any longer because we got a lot of important things to talk about today. The dance world is buzzing. We definitely don't want to start the show without just, definitely acknowledging that there's so many things going on in the dance world right now, and we all need to be paying attention, understanding, gathering facts, and really becoming educated about what is going on in our industry and how we can best protect our students, our dancers, and make sure that every experience they have here, whether it be at a convention or a competition or in the studio, is a safe and happy one. So please, everybody, read up, stay in the know, do what you can, and be aware. That is all I'm going to say about that today.
Actually, I'm going to add, go find the Toronto Star article that came out yesterday.
Yes.
About the latest abuse allegations in the dance industry. It's definitely something that you need to know about. Go find that article and educate yourself, please.
It is quite thorough and detailed. So please, it's the Toronto Star. So today we're going to talk to Dr. Karageanes about what are the best tools and resources that are out there for our performance athletes. This industry has been growing and growing and growing, and I'm going to say it could be controversial, but the dance industry saved us in COVID. Everybody redid musicals. Everybody put musicals and dance theater pieces on television to be streamed, and everybody was entertained by dancers during COVID. When you think about Hamilton, when you think about the Cinderella remake that's now out there, all of them are extremely dance heavy. And all of those things were brought to streaming services during COVID because people wanted to be entertained. And the fact that we were able to lean on the dance community to continue to make revenue and money in the entertainment industry, but we still do not turn around and give the dance performers and performance athletes the care and resources that they need has to be addressed. We can't lean on the dance industry when we need help and then throw them away when everything is going well. That's not kind, and that's not how we do it here in the dance industry. So I am so happy to be having this conversation here today. As usual, I am here with my friend Bree from Apollo, and we are ready to get started. I was out last week. I was in Cancun.
She left me all alone to go to Cancun.
I left you all alone to go to Cancun, but I am back and really happy to be here. This is being recorded, so please make sure that you sign up with us on Zoom to get the recording. If you're watching this now on social media, share it now so other people can join this conversation. We would love to have more people. If you have comments or questions, please put them in the chat here on Facebook or on Instagram. You'll see us looking around, and we'll try to pull those in as much as we possibly can. So without further ado, Bree, would you please introduce Dr. Karageanes?
Yes, so Dr. Karageanes is back with us again this season. He's a primary sports care medicine physician at Restorative Physical Medicine. He achieved certification in performing arts medicine through the Performing Arts Medical Association. He serves on the board of directors for the Bridge Dance Project, as well as the executive board for Personal Safety and Dance International Working Group, and the advisory board for Youth Protection Advocates in Dance. Our friends at YPAD, check them out at ypad.org. They're doing great work to keep kids happy, healthy, safe, and dance. Dr. K also works with numerous studios and college dance programs in the Metro Detroit area. Shout out to Detroit, Michigan, our hometown. Love that he's from here. He's also the past president of the American Osteopathic Academy of Sports Medicine. Dr. K, welcome back, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, what's been going on with you in the last 6 months? I know, what are some of the changes you're seeing? Melissa talked a little bit about, the last year and what's happened with the dance community, but especially with dancers, what are you seeing as we sort of all rebound back from the chaos of last year?
Well, I think the biggest thing by far has been I think it gave the interruption gave everybody a chance to rethink dance in general. I think from a perspective of participation, like, do I want this? Number one, how important is this to me? I think it made a lot of really interesting, it showed a lot of insights into how people view themselves as a dancer, as their identity. Because we have the same exact issue with athletes, where if you're defined by athletics, if you're defined by being the quarterback or you're a football player, and then you suddenly don't have that. And so dancers were struggling with that in a lot of different areas of the mental and the emotional aspects of their well-being. Who am I if I don't dance ever again? If there's no place to dance, if I'm not allowed to be anywhere, what am I doing here? And I think that was a good thing, but also a bad thing, because the bad thing part is that we didn't have enough support for people to go through that process on their own, because we didn't have interactions with people. We couldn't have people in the office. I mean, I was out of the office for 2 months. It was absolutely incredible to think that, like, all my life of working, residency and internship, all of a sudden 2 months of like just being in the house and nowhere to go because every place is closed. So that was insane. But so I think it shed a lot of light on the mental aspects of performance dance. Like, what are we doing it for and who's it for? And then seeing how little support there was for with the bailouts and all the different financial support structures that are put in place for various aspects of the economy. But they're realizing, whoa, entertainment is what really separates us from other species on Earth. We entertain ourselves, we tell stories. That's the creative aspects of humanity that we treasure so much. And yet we're not doing anything to help support them. And all these people who are living at, gig to gig, and all these different contracts are established, equity versus non-equity, and all these kind of things, you start realizing, my gosh, when all this stops, we have no support for this incredibly essential aspect of what we do as a culture. So hopefully we started seeing more money and more support being put into that as the pandemic wore on. So I think that, to me, is a very positive thing. And then, of course, the biggest part, physical, right, is, not doing all the dancing that you're used to doing, trying to do it in your apartment and doing grand jetés and putting your foot through the drywall. Or doing
I want to know how many people did that. I want to know if you did that.
I have 3 patients who did that. It was and whacked themselves in the furniture or falling into the walls, or right above their parents, dancing upstairs, and parents downstairs, shut that noise up. Oh my gosh. So, but dancers got to dance, so that's part of the problem, is that you have to keep on doing what you do. I mean, you have to continue, that's part of their essence. And so, so the physical training part was the hardest part by far, is getting them back into some sort of dance shape to be able to function again when they go suddenly from 0 to 60.
Absolutely.
People are saying now, I think we recapped an article in our season opener about, getting back on point and getting back in the studio and doing it injury-free after COVID. Like you said, you've been sitting around for quite a few months now, and that's not something that you're used to. So the physical aspect is definitely, but I never thought of the mental aspect. Thank you so much for highlighting that for us. So I want to my point earlier, the dance community of dance athletes, like the group of them, the number of them, professional, semi-pro, collegiate youth, has been growing rapidly over the last 10 to 15 years. And, we can attribute that to a lot of things. We can attribute to reality TV as well. The explosion of, I want to be a dancer. specifically a contemporary dancer. But yet the community has been slow to adopt so many of the tools and resources that have been proven and accepted as standards for other athletes. So, cross training and training and having appropriate support things and, tools. And we don't do that. So why do you think that is? Why has there just been such a slow adoption of these tools and resources?
That's a great question. I mean, it really is a great question because and this is where, so I'm also part of a group called Athletes in the Arts. And so one of our initiatives back in 2013, when we first launched it, was to bring the sports medicine and the performing arts medicine worlds together to help share information. And the reason why that is because back then, I mean, and still now, of course, we see the dance medicine and performing arts medicine world, music medicine too, as being where sports medicine was like 25 years ago, right when I started my career. Because back then we had the same exact issue. You have football coaches who came from Alabama or Texas and Bo Schembechler at Michigan, and this is how we did things, and therefore that's how I'm doing it here because I was taught by these guys, and that's how we train them. We do 2-a-days in 90-degree heat and 90% humidity, and we don't drink water because it's you get water after practice. And
it's almost like a badge of honor in a way that you can get through it without all that stuff. Yeah.
Until folks started dying.
Right.
So, and folks started dying in practice and dying during 2-a-days. And then, so the sports medicine world, the selling point of all the information, the research that was being done was saying, look, if you adopt these new things that research has proven, that our research finds, you will perform better. You will stay better. You'll stay healthier, and you'll be able to do what you want to do and basically win, right? Have a better chance to win. So in performing arts, it's trickier because you're not, I mean, obviously now with certain shows, you're winning or competing to win. In competitions, you're trying to get scores and, high gold and platinum and elite platinum and diamond elite platinum. I'm sorry, platinum is the extra syllable there. They love doing that. Platinum, so. So there is that competition part of it. So the way I look at it is that it's the same kind of thing. My mom, was in New York and she studied under Baryshnikov's cousin's brother, and therefore I do this because of that.
Right.
And now dance medicine is bringing more research forward and saying, okay, here's what happens when you do this. Here's what happens when you do that. If you have very little lean muscle mass, you're going to have these kind of problems with bone density issues and just your overall health. And you're going to have lots of issues if you don't eat properly. And actually nutrition is a good thing, not just cigarettes and water or lime water, right? So I think those are all very important things that are slow to adopt because people get set in their ways. And there's still that attitude of, we're not quite, I mean, people want to give credit to the athlete part of dance because if you think about, I always consider, there's aesthetic athletes and then there's, pure athletes where there's an aesthetic, there isn't that aesthetic component. Football player crosses a goal line, it doesn't matter if you stagger or trip or fall into it.
Right.
But you got to be an incredible athlete and then do it perfectly every time and look amazing in the dance world. Those are two extra criteria there.
Yeah, they're the toughest athletes in the world for sure. There was an article naming dancers as the number one hardest job ever,
Oh, right. So, research supports it. Exactly. Yeah. So but the problem is the aesthetic is what everybody says, okay, that's the excuse, is that the aesthetic is what I try to strive for. I don't need this and that. And then Misty Copeland, I think with her physique has kind of broken down that. I mean, obviously from a race standpoint, she's obviously broken down that barrier, but her physique, I think, is also something that's overlooked a lot because her muscles and her muscular tone, while still having flexibility and that kind of facility, is what really strikes me as something that's more revolutionary than anything else, because we're starting to recognize that's healthy looking. That's a fit dancer. I mean, she's obviously hyper fit, obviously, because she's, special, but there are a lot of dancers out there like that kind of build that have larger thighs and glutes and back muscles. And that's healthy. That's good. That's what we want them to have, not being totally rail thin and not have the stability and stamina to survive all the training they do.
Right. But even with all of that, even with all the examples you just cited, all the progress that's been made, because there's a huge dance medicine and science community doing the work. The research is there. There's even more in the works right now, especially coming off of COVID. People can actually, execute those research projects that they've had planned for so long, and we're part of that too. But there's still those people that, for whatever reason, whether it's I went through it, so you need to go through it too, or the traditionalists that say, you know, that I don't know if they don't have access to the research, they don't look beyond the way they were taught, but there's still a really big segment of the dance world that I think is living in this space of denial, and in a very, very heavily padded comfort zone.
Yeah, I think that's very reasonable, because I think comfort zone is correct, right? Because if you're a company that's performing, and you judge, you know, based on the number of folks that come see you, you can use that as your criteria for success. But I would contend that, or I contend that we're starting to see changes more often than not in most of these situations. I think we're starting to see more conditioning classes involved in competition studios. I think people are starting to see, like I thought they would, that if you do these things, you don't get hurt as often, and which means you can rehearse more, which means you get better. And all of a sudden now you're in more numbers at every convention. And then in college, they're being more astute to this, I think, as well. Dean College, for instance, we did a podcast with Athletes in the Arts with Christina Berger and Amanda Donahue, the trainer, Amanda, and the Christina's on faculty, and how close they work together. And that's a kind of unique situation where you actually have that close of a relationship between the trainer and the faculty. And, you know, I work with U of M and some of their stuff as well, but, you know, more unofficially there. But I think we're starting to see it. But yeah, it's an evolution over time, because people will start seeing, I mean, Misty Copeland broke through in the last 10 years, right? So it takes time for this stuff to trickle down, because the dance, like I just changed jobs. And I put a pin on the map where my new clinic is at Novi, Michigan, and did a 30-mile radius around my job, and to see all the different places I want to market to for dance. I counted 95 separate dance studios.
Wow. In a 30-mile radius.
I'm like, I had no clue. And there's like Irish dance, Bollywood dance studios, all, you know, ballroom, of course, all these places. So dance is really big. And I think now that people are starting to recognize, it's getting more, I see the phrases athletes and artists together all the time now, since we started doing it in 2013. So I think it's, again, not nearly as fast enough for my taste. I want them to just say, gee, Dr. K, you're right. I'm just going to do it.
Right. Exactly.
That would be the dream. Yeah.
Just like, yeah, of course you're right. You're totally right. You've always been right. Yeah, we'll keep dreaming for that, Dr. K. Yeah, we'll keep believing for it. I also just want to, in the conversation that I hear as I was listening to Bree speak and you speak about, just this is what we've always done. I think a lot of it we attribute to traditionalism. This is what we've always done.
Oh, yeah.
We pass this down, but a lot of it is fear, because when you try a new thing, you do not know whether it's actually going to work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we have to break through that fear of, you know, oh my God, what if this doesn't work and the people don't buy tickets, like you said, Dr. K, or what if it doesn't work and the students leave my studio, or what if that fear, I think we put the traditionalism label on fear a lot.
Yeah, or I can lose my job as a choreographer, as a studio faculty, as a college faculty. Yeah, absolutely. And colleges are, you know, because a lot of college faculty have people who've been there for a very long time, and some of those folks aren't necessarily you know, wanting to challenge, you know, things too much, because, you know, they're comfortable, the program's comfortable, we're doing well, we're doing great, you know, we're bringing an occasional guest person here and there, and that's about it. So I'm not referencing any programs I work with, but just programs I know of in general. When there's folks, we have a mixture of a young and old coming in. You don't get as many young folks in because there's not as many tenure positions. I think there's actually a great article in Dance magazine about tenured faculty positions and how few I think it's Dance magazine, where they talked about how, you know, these adjunct faculty positions where it's basically, we don't have to pay you full time, but that, you know, and they're the younger ones who have all this information. So the older ones who are more tenured, they stay in those positions for a long time, and they're not really in. It doesn't behoove them to put themselves out, like you said so well right there, you know, have the fear of putting themselves out on the limb for that.
That's a great point.
So I want to bring up a controversial topic really just out of the gate, because, you know, I think it was actually during the last time that you were with us. There was the video that surfaced of the LSU Tigers.
Tiger
was it
girls,
basketball?
Yep.
Yeah.
No, it was
no, it was a dance team.
Dance team.
Yeah, it was a dance team. And, you know, the lack of resources and the lack of tools that were given and they're making money for the university in that. Do you think that that patriarchy and sexism has any influence in what's being offered to dance athletes? Because, you know, when you look at what's offered to female athletics versus male athletics, you see a stark difference financially, medically, all that support. Do you think the fact that dance has traditionally been associated with female performers could be a contributing factor?
I think 100%. I mean, to call it sexism and you're being sexist, I think is obviously a little overwrought as a term, but there's no doubt that, like, here's the best way to describe it. What I see in sports clinics all the time is that football player comes in on Monday, he's got a sprained ligament in his knee. He's got a football game on Friday. The traditional response is, okay, let's give him the therapy right away. We'll put a brace on, we'll get some special taping, we'll put some stim on, we'll do all this stuff here. We'll get the brace fitted for him, we'll do all these things for him and get him out there by Friday. So a 15-year-old dancer comes in, got to resettle on Friday. Well, hon, you know, this knee injuries are bad, you know, you better just take a couple weeks off here and let it go. I hear it all the time. I've heard it all the time for 20 years. Since I started focusing on cheerleaders back in 2000. I wrote for American Cheerleader magazine in like 2000 to 2010. And so because I saw this terrible need for, you know, some sort of expertise in that field. So I think there's been definitely that part. And then of course the money. So a lot of the money is controlled by men in a lot of these different organizations that deal with this. So like even though you have lots of females in dance, a lot of female choreographers, when you get to the highest levels of choreography and companies and things, a lot of males have ran that. A lot of the money comes from males. And that's where I think most of it is. I mean, I don't want to go as far as, you know, say, okay, I see you as a woman, I don't care about you, what you do. I don't think it's that overt at all. But I think it's been like the battle of creatives in the business world. So like I'm a filmmaker on the side, I've done lots of film projects. I have a good friend of mine who's an author and she writes novels. And so she's faced this before where you have like, you know, you're passionate about your project and you put all your money, you know, all your heart and soul into it. Then the money man comes in like, yeah, I like it. I'll publish it. Yeah, I like it. I'll give you money for the production. I don't want to give you that much money. I'm sorry. I don't care. I'm done. For them, it's a 5-minute decision. For another person, it's 4 years of work. So if dancers this is their life and all, and they depend upon males to help run things, that power dynamic is where the problem lies. And so money is a driver in a lot of this. And so if the money's been traditionally in the more male hands, then yeah, but I think as opposed to like males oppressing females, I don't think that's the case. I think I don't think it's that simple either. But I definitely think that there's been because it's a female oriented activity, it definitely does not get the same kind of attention for resources for everything. And I think we don't have to look any further than the women's basketball tournament. I think that was the greatest example because first of all, the last year was the example where they had the men's weight room for the Final Four, all the stuff, and the girls had like 2 dumbbells. And almost like a joke, almost like a parody. It wasn't a joke. It was legit. And then they analyzed the situation. They hired a law firm to look at the whole thing. And there's going to be changes now. But here's why. Because they analyzed that the NCAA is missing out on hundreds of millions of dollars by not marketing the women's basketball tournament the same way as men's. Not letting women use March Madness as a term. They can't. They could never use March Madness for their own tournament. Not having it the same weekend. Imagine a weekend where you had like Thursday men's Final Four, Friday women's Final Four, Saturday men's Final Two. That'd be a massive basketball weekend, massive money. But they never thought about it because they never considered women as a serious equal in that situation. But now the hilarious thing is that because it's going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars that they're leaving on the table, now it's going to be in action. Now it's going to be like, hey, we are for women's sports. Why? Because we can make money off this. Is it right? Is it wrong? I mean, bottom line is, do you get where you want to be?
It's one of those things I'm learning. The money talks, and it's everybody hates it, but it's the reality of our life that we live in, the world that we live in. And so if you can embrace that and understand it, you can figure out how to work around it. And that, I mean, to go back to
the women's soccer program, right? I mean, talk about, you know, whatever your politics are as far as sexuality and such, that's to the side. The biggest complaint that women were having in the men's soccer program is that women's soccer program was wildly successful over the years with sponsorships and everything. So should they make the exact same money as men? No, if the money that comes in is different, but they should make the same proportion of the money.
I'm glad you said that, because that's the argument I hear all the time. Well, who's bringing in the money, who's bringing, and I'm like, it should all be so balanced and proportionate.
Right.
And that doesn't make any sense.
Exactly.
Like, they still deserve the same treatment as an athlete, right?
Precisely. Yeah. WNBA will never bring in as many fans as NBA, but if they have enough money to sustain themselves and pay their players and pay everybody, then who are we to knock that league because they have 7,000 people per game versus 20,000?
They're still making money. They're still making a ton of money.
And that's what they want to do.
Right.
I mean, in the end, what's the end point here? I mean, we still are watching a sporting event that entertains us for a little bit. We go back to our lives.
Yeah.
And these are folks who put their heart and soul into it. That's why I love dance so much, working with dancers, because I always talk about how dancers have this, they're out there on the stage, basically nude to the audience, right? Either nude with form-fitting clothing, their whole body can be seen. They have to express concepts and ideas purely with physicality, all their emotion flowing through their body and expressed in that way, making themselves as vulnerable as possible and doing it perfectly every time. And I have massive admiration for that kind of ability and for that kind of art, that kind of craft work, because nothing else, is like that. And, and then you're asking dancers at 8, 7, 6 years old to do this. And this is why we have to protect them against sexualization and all those kind of things, because we're asking 6-year-olds to be totally vulnerable on stage and then learn how to do that the whole way through. It's an amazing,
that's a great segue, because we do have kids that are really young getting into the space, and we're asking them to carry a lot of weight and a lot of maturity at a very young age. So where do you feel like the biggest voids are? You've worked with competitive athletes, you've worked with performance athletes alike. What are the biggest voids you see in the tools and resources that are offered for performance athletes specifically?
I think the mental health aspect of things from the tools and resources is lacking for sure. Insurances don't cover it. And there's, as much, there's starting to cover it more often now. You're getting more counseling covered. I think that's a big thing. But understanding the basics of mental health is just as crucial. Checking in with your kids, checking in with them. Here's a great example. So dancers, I mentioned, going out there on a stage by yourself with skin tight clothing on and doing amazing things with your body only for everybody to watch. Every single person's watching, right? So that's incredible, right? So a similar thing though is in sports with baseball, for instance. So you're 10 years old and you have a kid on the mound as a pitcher. Now, baseball is a weird sport because you have teams, but you have all this individual performance and achievement. Well, a pitcher is much like a quarterback. The game runs through them. And so some kids aren't emotionally able to handle that pressure. Some kids don't want that attention. This kid may throw really hard, but some kids can't handle it. And some kids can't handle being a quarterback because of the pressure of doing it. They may have all the talent in the world for it. But I think that's the problem is we don't teach our parents and our coaches well enough to check in with their athletes and performers about whether or not they can handle that, because and some kids get hurt in baseball because they're trying so hard, as a pitcher, because they're terrified to fail, because they can't stand having all the attention on them. And some dancers are great in the core, are great in production numbers, but their solo's terrible, quote unquote terrible, because the girl doesn't do this and do that. But sometimes they just don't want to be the center of attention. And if they are center of attention, they make a mistake. Sometimes they can't get past that. So how do we help dancers who make a mistake in their solo? They do a terrible job. They come off like, oh my gosh, I was so horrible.
The tears start,
just devastated. And then, okay, tomorrow is Monday, back to the studio. And then you just kind of forget about it. And then it builds up and builds up and builds up. And all of a sudden it manifests in different ways.
Two things come to mind as you were talking. For parents, I think there's a tendency to rely on the coach, the director, the educator to be able to address all the things with their dancers specifically. And I think it's really important to teach parents to ask questions, like you said at the beginning. Always be asking. Don't assume that your coach or director has got it covered. We're seeing an increase in the amount of studios that are incorporating mindset skills and mindset coaching into the curriculum for their dancers, especially their competitive dancers, but it's not enough. So parents can help by advocating for their child, asking questions, doing research on their own, and working on some of these things at home, there's really easy things. And since we're here and talking about this particular topic, it would be remiss to not bring up our friend Ashley Mowry, who's a health and mindset coach for dancers specifically. She does virtual consults, and you can, I think it's Ashley Mowry Mindset on Instagram. And Dr. Chelsea Parati, she's going to be joining us next week. She does great work as a mindset coach. And then we've also got Kristen Dice, who blogs for us, and she's the founder of Dance Send, and they do some great work for dancers as well. So those are all great resources for you to check out. Their Instagram pages are chock full of content and information for you if you're a parent of a dancer who doesn't get that mindset training in the studio yet. You can also follow them and make sure you're getting that information for your dancers. So check them out, and we'll link them in this conversation after it's over as well. So if you're just joining, I'm Bree with Apollo here with my co-host and beautiful friend, Melissa McDaniel, and our other friend, Dr. Stephen Karageanes, who's joining us today to talk about what are the biggest and most important tools and resources for performance athletes, specifically dancers. And so, Dr. K, I have a dual question. You can kind of answer in whatever order you want, but what are the most underrated tools and resources we're seeing for performance athletes right now? And are there any new and exciting and revolutionary tools and treatments specifically for dancers? Sorry, I just got pulled off Instagram. Sorry about that. Is there anything new and exciting and revolutionary for dancers that we should be aware of?
Well, I think that's a loaded question as far as like what's revolutionary. We'll find out down the road whether something works. I think the biggest problem with the most underrated aspect of performance training is, I think, the mental aspect of it. Be able to calm your mind and meditative type of breathing are tools, for instance, I think are crucial. And people can look up, there's lots of different ways of doing it. There's the Breathe app, those kinds of things. Breathe app is a good one. Calm is another good one. But I think the ability for an athlete to stop and slow things down in their mind. We talk about this all the time in athletics, and dance is the same thing, because in terms of, again, the choreography comes at you and you have to pick it up really fast. And you start going through it. And then you're going through reps, more and more and more. Then you're cleaning it over and over and over. And then you're performing it, and all of a sudden it's done. Right. And there's no time sometimes for even like my friend Ann Cowan at Yale University does restorative rest programs and treatments that people can do for themselves. Where basically it's 5 minutes of like, her program is a little more complex, but 5 minutes of almost like a half nap kind of moment where you're basically reviving your body to some degree, but also calming the mind down. That is incredibly underrated, because we talk about it, take a breath. We almost kind of throw out there as like, sit down, take a breath. Okay. Just chill out for a minute, just chill out. And it kind of gets tossed out there as like a flippant little thing. Or as a form of like frustration, just sit down and just chill out. Right? Okay, but no, actually, it's what it does is like we talk about all the time with like younger performers versus mature performers, and young athletes versus experienced athletes. The game looks easy or slow to them. That, and they say that, they describe that, be able to get to that that state of like a higher level of functioning when they're performing, in the zone, that type of stuff. It's more or less just be able to like calm your brain down so you can process more efficiently as you're going on. That's what separates, I think, good dancers from great dancers. Being able to be able to be in the moment so you can process instead of thinking about what you have to do next. Be able to instinctively do what you have to do so that you can express more of your creativity through it. That's why certain athletes will do creative movements out there on the field when they are feeling more in the zone or more at the moment, because they can respond to differences in what's happening in the game. You train all you want, but then the game situations are always a little bit different than what you train for, of course, because there's a give and take in response. So I think that's what's really important. I think that's very underrated. And I know it seems trite, but I think that's the point, is that it gets considered trite because it seems so basic, but I don't see anybody ever doing it. And when they do it, they're like, I feel much better.
It's so funny because we did an entire episode last week on breathwork, and we had Dr. T. Doman on.
That's right. I saw that.
And
that's right.
We did breathwork. And I mean, I never would have thought we could have dedicated an entire hour to breathing. But I've been thinking about it every day since then, because I have high anxiety constantly, and I'm always working to I mean,
I'm
I
always
can't get a
holding my
grip
breath.
on it. I'm always, and I'm figured out I'm breathing completely wrong. And also I learned from her, your exhale should be longer than your inhale. It should be like
Right.
quadruple the time as your inhale.
Right.
And when you really try to do that, like she set a goal,
It's
I
so
think for
hard.
like 20 seconds, your exhale should be 20 seconds. It is so hard to do.
20?
And 20,
I'd
I
be
know. And she said she's
blowing
gotten
forever.
to 18.
Wow.
But yeah, it was crazy. And it's amazing because you can do it anywhere. So dancers that, again, they can do it on their own in class, in the studio, they can do it at home. And the more you practice, obviously, the better you get at it. And it makes a material difference in your brain and the way you're able to process information. I've been working at it since last Friday, and it's crazy to me, the difference. I know it sounds silly, but I mean, it really,
Yeah. No, it's not silly at all.
difference.
No. I think so. To go back to your question about like, the hottest new things, I think really I wouldn't put, I mean, there's no like tool, whatever it is. Like, for instance, there's a blood flow restriction training now. That's a hotter new trend now for building strength, for instance, where you're basically wearing a blood pressure cuff on your limb and helps to stimulate growth hormone and those kind of things. So it's pretty amazing, actually. Now, is it going to make you suddenly a bodybuilder? No, but especially we're using a lot of it now in rehab. But I think the more important aspect of a performance athlete, I think we're starting to learn more about things like how to calm down inflammation in your body faster through nutrition and through certain elements of food, and like using turmeric, for instance, for inflammation helps calm things down. There's a company I use a ton. I like to plug them here called Incrediwear. Incrediwear makes sleeves for the knee, the ankle. They make socks. I have the socks on right now. Leggings, which are cheaper than Lululemon leggings, but it's anti-inflammatory recovery wear. So if you go to incrediwear.com, INCREDIWEAR, Incrediwear. Their stuff is actually, they have research, and they came to market at our conferences, medical conferences, not just as a person coming, saying as a mailer. And we see how it decreases swelling in joints and limbs, like people who have dependent edema in their legs from bad circulation. But I've had one dancer specifically, I remember she had MRI findings that showed edema throughout the foot. She had this constant pain for over a year, on and off. The more she danced, the more it hurt. She wears these socks. I haven't seen her since for any problem.
I'm going to take a minute. Apollo socks. That's why we do what we do. We've made Apollo socks for this reason, and not just for dancers. It's for anyone with feet, and compression works. We have the research to back it up. We have the APMA seal. Like, it's not just any sock. You have to look for compression zones that are targeted, that are going to get you support you throughout your calf and your ankle, but also in your feet. And I think that's what's missing in a lot of compression wear, is that support in the targeted zones in the feet. And that's the biggest difference. So you can't stress that enough.
A lot of my dancers wear their Apollo socks for performance and for dance training. And they wear the Incrediwear stuff outside for like the legs and the knees and the joints and such. So a combination of that stuff. I mean, a lot of NBA teams are wearing this stuff for their joints, for their legs. So I think those are important things. But I think the actual like hot thing is not quite proven yet. I don't think we have anything that I want to put my name on or say yet.
It's gonna take time.
There's a lot of promising things out there, but again, it's the problem is there's never an easy solution for any of the stuff.
Right. Yeah. No.
Thank you.
There's not. There's never an easy solution, but it is promising to see that to hear that things are coming down the pike there, and hopefully we're able to utilize some of those in the future. I want to talk a little bit about advocacy, because with all these things that are happening, and things that are coming down the pipeline, you say in your work with PSD that dancers need advocates for their wellness and safety, and dancers are trained. We're trained to be quiet, dance, do what the teacher says, do what the choreographer says, move right, move left, and really play silently. It's almost like being the more silent you are, the better part of it, the better you are at a team. Like, don't say anything, you need to be quiet. Quiet is where you need to be, whereas most teams are totally opposite of that. Speak up, be a leader, and we're like, no, be quiet, be a follower, do what we say. So it's the total opposite in dance. So what are some simple ways that we can shift dance studio culture to being more dance centric, where, you know, the decisions are made based on the dancer's voice and what's best for the dancer, and their well-being. And there's a genuine concern for the dancer. So how do we balance that? How do we make things more dance centric? And it's a two-part question. And how do we do that while still maintaining this level of deference and respect for directors and teachers and choreographers, and keeping
Right.
that student authority balance?
Yeah, I think the most important thing about this question is defining what we're talking about. So saying a dancer-centric studio, a dancer-centric company, means that you take the dancer as the focal point of what this company does. Doesn't mean that they get to do the choreography. Doesn't mean they get to choose who does what part. Doesn't mean that Nutcracker, they're going to be the Sugar Plum Fairy if they want to be, or they're going to do whatever they want to do.
Right.
Doesn't mean that at all, or especially 10-year-olds telling them what to do. What it means is that you're always checking in on the dancer, themselves, and trying to do things that maximize their well-being, because you get a better dancer and you get a more connected dancer, and you create better art that way. And that's what I've been trying to say before. That's what I've been saying before, is that's how we're going to move forward with a more progressive, more progress in this field, is when companies and choreographers realize that's in their best interest to have a dancer-centric approach to their performers. Because it's not, I think we're starting to see that the Band-Aid's been torn off. These wounds have been hidden for so many years of the abuse. And when I say abuse of dancers, we're not just talking about, like, you know, the things that make the papers, but little microaggressions that happen all the time.
Trauma.
And making dancers do things that they don't want to do because you just want that, or just like, go get me a coffee, go do this for me. Just those simple things, belittling them. Like, that was just awful from all her, you know, friends. Let's do it again. People think tough love is good, but tough love doesn't mean insulting them. It doesn't mean being brutal with them. I mean, you can be honest with them, and sometimes brutally honest if you have to be, but there's a way of doing that too. But it's also checking in with them to make sure that they're doing okay with what's happening, because a lot of choreography now, the biggest problem is like almost like marathon training, right? How hard can you push yourself in practice / rehearsal here before you break down? And that's what we're facing with choreography. Trying to push the limits of choreography, trying to push the limits of physical abilities and the bendy girls and the bendy bodies and those things that we talk about all the time on, you know, Instagram here as well. Is that, you know, that's, you know, you're gonna break those bendy bodies if you push them too far, but you don't know if they're breaking unless they feel they can tell you. And sometimes they may need to tell their parent, and the parent relays that. So I think with the minors, they need advocacy from the parents to make sure there's a good conversation with the company, and make sure the parent understands the company is in the studio is not there to please them. You know, you have to work hard if you want to achieve things, but you want to do it in a fair way, and making sure you're not, you know, they can handle it. If they can't handle it, then, you know, I had one dance studio I know that was, you know, checking with a girl that was inpatient. I think I may have told the story before, inpatient for eating disorder. And then she got, you know, they're talking about when she gets out, it'll be right before this competition. And so she'll be able to make it this competition, and then we can put her in all these different dances. And I'm like, you guys don't get it. This is not how it's supposed to work. You know, that's exactly the kind of, you know, you can have a dance by yourself and like just do dance training just to nourish your own soul, but you can't, the competition part's what's driving her, you know, through this, you know, through this eating disorder.
I had that situation happen, and the parent and the child were so concerned about coming back from that and getting for the last competition and getting in, because she had worked so hard all season. And I had to make that decision for the child that you're not going to be in it. And it was devastating to her. And it was the hardest thing ever to look at her after all that she had been through and say no. But it wasn't right. It wasn't
exactly. It's terrible. So I think that's really that. I think, you know, once we start understanding what a dancer-centric program means, that people have a fair say to everything. It's not a dictatorship. I think that's when these conversations start opening up, and then you may learn more about the dancers than they never knew. I never knew that you liked this. I never knew you had this kind of training. I never knew you had that kind of background. You know, and then maybe that changes how the choreography goes. But it's more or less making sure that their health and wellness is front and center. And there's plenty of tools out there that through personal safety in dance, through youth protection advocates in dance, we have lots of resources to help company owners, studio directors, studio owners, faculty to achieve that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I want to, because we have talked for almost an hour now about this, and I feel like we could talk for a whole, I feel like we could talk for another hour. But originally I was going to ask, what are some of the things as directors and studio owners we need to make sure that we're providing access to. But I think I have an idea just overall in general, since what we've talked about, but I just want you to confirm, Dr. K. So mental health resources and support. I hear like tools, things like Apollo, socks and Credaware for your
Right.
your leggings and those types of things. And then medical care that is dance centric. Would you agree that those are the three things that we need to be pushing and making accessible to our students in our studio spaces?
I would definitely agree, I think, with that aspect for sure. I think Doctors for Dancers is doing a nice job. Also, Performing Arts Medical Association and IADMS, all those are groups that have networks of professionals that deal with dance. Because the biggest fear, and I totally get this, I think it's legitimate, and most dancers out there know that they probably went to a doctor before where they have back pain, and then the doctor either blew them off, send the therapy, or more likely put them in a back brace. And that's it.
Yep.
Or they'll take you off dance for 6 weeks for your back.
Yeah.
The evidence-based medicine shows that 6 weeks of rest, 80% of all back pain goes away. And I read that all the time. That study is, it's an old study, number one. Number two, who wants to sit there for 6 weeks waiting for the back pain to go away, doing nothing? Nobody.
Yeah.
I contend that let's go better than that. But you have to have people that understand dance to some degree. Not have to be a professional, like people that have been trained in it, like I have. There are folks that have at least an understanding of dance, that because that makes everybody afraid to go see a doctor.
Yeah.
Who wants to go see a doctor when they're going to tell you no dance, wear this boot. What's the problem? You're dancing too much. But I dance the same amount as everybody else in my company, and no one else has this problem.
Right.
Well, that's them. Yeah, right. It is them.
Everybody's
what
different.
Are you saying? What are you saying, doc? And we see it all the time. Like, it just hurts. It's just sore. They don't have a good diagnosis for it. But whatever it is, wear this boot, it'll go away. It's not malpractice at all. Of course not. It's,
right.
It would make things feel better. But usually that person's going to be just as bad in a different way when they get out of the boot. Because they're going to be mechanically off. And so that's going to be a big problem for them. So a lot of times having, Apollo socks for dance, and then Credaware, and then exercises, and like relative rest for a week of like maybe not as much bar, can solve like a whole chunk of problems in there. Or just doing so I teach a lot of dancers. We have the Australian Ballet has these programs for building up gastroc strength and psoas strength, getting as strong as you possibly can in both those muscles, and they help prevent surgeries in both those joints.
Right.
Just things like that. But you need to understand that. So the more we get people that can understand dancers better, then the dancer will feel comfortable seeking out help. And then they'll be able to get that kind of help when they have problems that occur.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. That is wonderful. I hear advocacy in there. Stand up for yourself.
Oh my gosh. If I didn't say it verbally, specifically, 100%, I think, that's, again, I understand why they don't. When you have situations like this repetitively, where you have people that don't seem to take you seriously, they blow you off. And that's, again, it goes back to the whole idea about like what we think is important. Football is so important. Why? Because lots of folks like it.
Yeah.
That's really the only criteria. But then if you break it down, I think many, many more people like dance. Here in Detroit with the Detroit Lions, we're watching the dancers.
Yep.
Because the team right now, 0-6.
Right. It's not going too well, up there in Detroit.
Shout out to the Detroit Lions cheerleaders, man. They
right, exactly.
Excellent.
Saving the day. The day.
Oh,
hey, hit us up. You all need some Apollo socks. Hit up Apollo. We'll take care of you.
Detroit Lions cheerleaders, we love you. They love you in Detroit. Woo-hoo.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So Dr.
Make the games bearable.
Yeah. We always like to give homework here on Beyond the Steps. You know this. You've already been through the homework process with us. You've given us a lot of great information. Let's narrow it down. What is one action that you want our listeners to take between now and next week to make progress in this area?
I would say the homework I would give it would be to any best friend, sibling, relative, or daughter or son that you have as a dancer. Take 5 minutes to talk about how they're feeling in dance. How do you feel about dance? How's your body feeling? And just find out where they are, what kind of place. Just take moments to touch base. It's so. I mean, we is an example with the performance training space that I worked with in the last 9 years here in Detroit. We started things up, and we had athletes one after another, and some dancers too, breaking down and crying and emoting so greatly when they were away from their parents in the training space. And like, I don't like why I hate soccer. I don't want to play soccer anymore. I can't, every time I try to dance now, I feel I'm terrified to make a mistake or whatever. And so we had to call our psychiatry department and psychologists together and meet with our staff to say, okay, what do we do with this? Yeah. So we have a mental health survey every patient answers before they actually come back for training. Because and that way and then mom answers it and the child answers it too. That way they're checking in. It's like some basic questions, very simple and easy questions, and we don't do anything. They're not punished if the answers are yes or no, but it's just a way to touch base and and raise the awareness. So that'd be my homework. Is like, if you have a friend out there, if you're like a college dancer, you have a friend, you're a little worried, just ask them, how are things going? How you feeling? Are you struggling at all in anything? Maybe you share your own problem. I feel there's one piece here. I'm just having a hard time getting that. I'm very anxious about this. What about you? This back is really bothering me. I'm starting to get more worried about this. I'm getting more concerned because I can't, my extension is like for crap. And so that's number one. And then number two, I probably would say is maybe start looking for resources around your area that have dance specific resources, like doctors, therapists, trainers, those kind of people. Not that you have to necessarily call them, just look them up.
Because it's so great to know that they're there, because if you do ever have a situation, then you can call and you're not wasting time looking instead of just acting. And I want to go one step further and just challenge the studio directors and the educators. Find those resources in your community so that when your dancer is in that situation, you can look at the parent and say, contact so-and-so. It will take the stress off you. It will take the stress off that parent. We've had that recommended so many times on our show, and I hope that every studio director will start to implement that this year.
I have a preferred vendor list that is dance centric. It's really simple. They're out there. Dr. K is living proof that they are out there. Dance center professionals.
No matter where you're at.
Any city, any state. We mentioned a few resources earlier, Doctors for Dancers, IADAMS, as places where you could go to find resources. We also have the STEPS initiative, which is available. It is a free course that is available from Apollo Performance, done, all over a year ago. I think at this point.
Still relevant though, very, very relevant.
Still relevant. Important. Yep, a lot of learning modules that you can use. Dance Medicine and Science is one of those modules, so please go and access that. It is totally free. Bree dropped that in the chat there. And then YPAD certifications are available. YPAD certifies dance teachers, dance educators in a number of different areas. So please visit ypadnow.com and see their courses. We do have a 25% off code, Apollo25. So that you can get 25% off of those courses. Dr. K has given us some resources. Personal Safety for Dance. It's personalsafetyfordance.com. PSD. It's an international working group that exists to develop a dance environment that is free from abuse, open, supportive for all people. So please check them out. The Bridge Dance Project, that's bridgedanceproject.com. You can visit them. We have had guests from Bridge Dance Project on the show before, so we are very happy to support them, as well as Doctors for Dancers. We've had a number of doctors that are part of the organization come and talk to us. So those are some wonderful resources that you have now. You can't say you don't know. We've given them to you. We've said them. We've put them in the chat. So please go and use them.
There's one more thing I was going to mention. So YPAD has a free sex abuse training module, and I just emailed Brianna the link to that. So especially with all the news that you're reading about today and today from the Toronto Star about everything that we talked about at the beginning of the show, This is a good resource to everybody can access for free. That gives you some ideas, some understanding of the concepts of what sex abuse is, what grooming is, talking about the various aspects of grooming, gifts and treats and touching and, personal relationships, and all those elements are covered in this type of material. I think it's something that's really good for studio owners and faculty, everybody, dancers, just to be aware of this, because a lot of this stuff happens. The abuse, sex, mental, emotional, physical, happens in the dark, in the quiet, in the back room. The famous Dr. Nasser, a lot of his work was done in the back room of the Twist Stars Gymnasium, where he had access. And so this helps. So the more light we shed on this environment in this world, then the fewer opportunities for these kinds of things to occur there will be.
And parents can be groomed just like the students can.
Yes.
So all the
100%.
parents that are allowing their children
100%.
to go, to hotel rooms, this is no blame at all, but it is happening. Parents and children are being groomed for these predators. And it's important that you're aware of how that's happening, why that's happening, and so that you can protect yourself and your child.
Yep.
Don't stop asking questions. But again, I want to point out that YPAD module, and other experts in each field donated the sex abuse and prevention module of the STEPS initiative. So if you do take the STEPS initiative, that module is in there, but you can also take it for free on YPAD's site, ypad.org. But either way, it's free resources. They did donate that module as part of the course. So thank you to our friends at YPAD. Dr. K, thank you so much for being here and for just sharing all of your knowledge and experience. It's just so much fun to get to chat with you every time you're here. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the time, and let's do it again sometime.
Oh yeah, we're down. We'll be calling you for sure. But Melissa is leaving me next week again. So
what?
Going to be out of town. Oh man. But we have a fantastic conversation planned, as I mentioned earlier, next Friday, October 29th at 2 p.m. Eastern, right back here. How can we instill mental toughness in our dancers while validating their feelings and emotions? This is another big one. We're going to be chatting with Dr. Chelsea Parati, who's a sports psychology consultant and mental performance coach for dancers and professional dancer. You will have seen her on Dancing with the Stars. And founder of the inclusive dancewear line Inside Out, Chelsea Hightower. So I have the Chelseas with me next week. And we're going to be talking. It's going to be a good show. So please join in. Tell everybody you know, share it in the Dance Teacher Network, share today's episode. We want the engagement. We want to educate people. And most importantly, we want to see this industry that we love continue to evolve for the better, to keep kids happy, healthy, and safe. That's why we all do what we do. So please share. If you have anything you want to hear about this season, we are still accepting topic ideas and questions that you might have. So please message us, info@apolloperformance.com, and we will look at getting that scheduled for you this season. In the meantime, we hope you do your homework, and we hope you continue your journey beyond the steps. Everybody have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Dr. K.